Josh Harvey of Big Red Report and Fox Sports Next, coming to you from the very confines of my home office in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's the night before I take off for Pasadena to watch Nebraska take on UCLA this Saturday at 7 o'clock Eastern on Fox. And I'm now joined by a very special guest, someone I'll always make time for. It's Fox Sports' college lead football analyst, Charles Davis, and he'll be on the call this weekend. Charles, I got to ask you right off the bat, you moved Nebraska up 8 spots in your power rankings this week to number 12. What was it that you saw from the Huskers that said, I have to move them up?
Well, it's a combination, Josh, because it's not just moving them up, it's moving other people down. And, week one, it's kind of like when you take a limited number of tests, like your GPA in college. It fluctuates like crazy the first year, right? I mean, you're just like, hey, I'm up here, and then one class kills you here, and it's a whole deal. But you have people moving up and down. Remember, Michigan was 8 and got clobbered. I dropped them way down, all right? Wisconsin, very unimpressive win at home. I dropped them. I dropped Florida out of my poll. So it's just a combination of working it. What I liked about Nebraska was a quality opponent. Southern Miss, remember, they won Conference USA last year, beat Houston at the end of the year in the championship game when Houston was riding high. They always can present problems for people. They have a number of good wins over the years and can play at a high level. And Nebraska was very clean and crisp in their victory. Taylor Martinez was terrific out of the gate throwing the football. They showed a really strong run game even without Rex Burkhead being on the field. And I thought the defense settled in and played better as things went on. So I think this is a team that is pretty darn good. And in week one was one of the more impressive teams that I saw, especially coming out of the Big Ten. And so when I saw what I saw from some other teams where I just, week one, I can't just give them credit and say, well, I voted them high before. I will move teams up and down based on what I saw each week.
Taking a look at UCLA, they have a brand new coaching staff led by Jim Mora. How hard is it for Bo Pelini and crew to really kind of break down a team like this when they only have one game of film?
Oh, it's hard. It's hard for them and for anyone else. And they had to go through it last week. Southern Miss changed coaching staffs in the offseason because the other coach got another job. And then even from spring practice to fall practice, they changed offensive coordinators. So they spent a lot of time preparing for everything. Now, in this case, you're trying to figure out, okay, the defense coordinator came from where? Well, he's been in the pros for a long time. Jim Mora, well, he hasn't coached in college. He's been a pro guy. So maybe you grab some pro film of things that they do, but you don't take it to the nth degree because you can do so many more things with pro players than you can college players. But just try and get an idea of base stuff and maybe a little bit of philosophy about things that they like to do. So it's very difficult to prepare, but what you try and do is focus inward and say, okay, this is what we do best. Let's focus on these things and try and make sure you have enough in your arsenal to handle all the things that you think they might throw at you. But again, the ability to adjust is what's going to be the key for Nebraska in this game. And don't think it's just halftime adjustments because that's a folly, all right? Everybody says, oh, we'll adjust at halftime. You better be adjusting from series to series, otherwise halftime might be too late.
You mentioned earlier Taylor Martinez. A lot has been made about his off-season progression. He looked like a more complete quarterback on Saturday. How much better can this Husker offense be if not only his feet are a dangerous weapon, but his passing ability is too?
Oh, I think it's huge to add that extra dimension where you're playing him to be consistently a good passing threat. But it's not just him. That means the receiving core is coming along and having those targets. Offensive lines keeping things clean for him in the pocket and able to maneuver and get sight lines. But yes, I agree totally on that one. If Taylor Martinez is able to throw it as well as he ran it in the past, you've got a real problem on your hands now dealing with Nebraska because you can't just load up in one area. Because, all defenses want to take away what you do best. But if you're equally proficient at doing two things, that makes it a whole lot tougher to load up, doesn't it?
Yep. 3 power ranking spots between Nebraska and Michigan State. The Spartans, the highest team in the highest Big Ten team in your power rankings. Really, how much do you think separates these two teams at the moment?
Not a lot. Not a lot. I think they're pretty even, and in a lot of ways, Michigan State gets the benefit for me of beating a Boise State team that I always think is very good. I don't care where they played them. I knew that was going to be a tough game. To me, it's the second most impressive win over in the first week of the season because of the quality of opponent. And I know they had a new quarterback. Has that ever really mattered with Boise State?
No.
Remember Kellen Moore's first starting went to Oregon and won. So let's that's Boise State. That's who they are. I don't think a lot separates them. In fact, what may separate those two teams, maybe the quarterback. Can Andrew Maxwell mature enough as a first-time starter to equal what we saw week 1 out of Taylor Martinez? And if Taylor Martinez can be that consistent, we're not expecting 5 touchdown passes every week, but can he be that type of a consistent quarterback? If so, he might give Nebraska the edge as we stand here now. Defensively, I love what Michigan State has on the defensive side of the football. Offensively, I'm really liking what Nebraska has, especially if they get Burkhead back healthy. I don't think a lot separates the two, but I had to reward Michigan State for who they beat.
Nebraska has made a reported 40 offers in this year's recruiting class in California this season. I got to ask how much you buy into the hype that a game like UCLA playing a local team will help that cause.
Oh, I think it plays big. It always does. I remember when Wisconsin won the first Rose Bowl, first time with the Rose Bowl, Barry Alvarez, and they just, coaches just stayed out there and started recruiting out west because now you have name identification. Now you have people who are looking at you and saying, wow, I could go there. Plus, they already have a pipeline established. They have 8, 9, I think they have 7, 8 guys who will be going back on this trip who are native Californians, most of them from that L.A. area, including Taylor Martinez, the quarterback. So those things happen. I remember a lot of teams along the way become more of a national team with more and more victories and profile, where they can go to those places. It won't be a place where they go and get 10 kids per year, but you'll get enough kids out of there, like you can target kids that you want. They'll be interested in your place. Some of the best kids in the country will be interested in going back and playing Nebraska because of the tradition of football back there. It's not the same as days gone by where everyone stayed in their own regional geographic areas. People will go across country to go play, and I think it's huge for them to go out there and show their wares in front of those same kids and coaches and programs that they're going to try and recruit.
Charles, before I let you go, I got to ask you, the game or the moment where you were covering Nebraska or watching Nebraska that you kind of remember the most from over the years?
Oh, man. For me, it's probably go back to Tom Osborne, 78, and they beat Oklahoma with Billy Sims, the year Billy Sims won the Heisman. You remember?
Yeah, okay.
To remember that. They beat them, I believe, 17-14. Okay? Billy Sims dropped on the turf a few times. Nebraska capitalized. They finally got over the hump and beat them because there had been a lot of pressure on Tom Osborne and Nebraska to get that done. They get it. They win the Big 8, which back then gave them the automatic bowl berth, right? They were going to the Orange Bowl. And it was the happiest moment in the whole deal. And then, you know what happened? The Orange Bowl people invited Oklahoma to come play them in a rematch.
Yep.
And it went from the greatest day.
Yep.
What? You talk about feeling betrayed, bait and switch, the whole deal, and Oklahoma beat them in the bowl game. It was it wasn't a blowout on the scoreboard, but you never felt like Nebraska really had a shot that night. Oklahoma just played much better than they did, and I really think the roots of that were right in that day where that's just not fair. We just beat these guys. Now we have to go play them again. Between the failed 2-point conversion, which I thought was one of the gutsiest things I've ever seen when Tom Osborne went for it against Miami. If he kicked the extra point, he's probably a national champion, his first one. But it wouldn't have felt right to him. They went for it, didn't get it when Ken Calhoun knocked it away. And then I remember watching Nebraska through all the years just beat up on people with those big linemen. I remember them coming to the Sugar Bowl and beating up on LSU, and I was like, man, who wants to play against those cats? I got a lot of memories about Nebraska. Turner Gill, Steve Taylor, quarterback, Irving Fryer, Rozier, Steinkuhler, Trainowitz, Remington. You can go on all day about these guys. Not even to mention the defensive guys that go on all day about them, too.
Fox Sports' Charles Davis, he'll be doing the game this weekend. Charles, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Appreciate your time.